Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this with your friends. Today's episode is with our friend Anila Lee Yuen. Anila was born in Calgary, and she tells me that her loved ones have been extremely supportive, and that has made all the difference in her life. Her husband, Stefan, is the most favorite person in her life, so nice, along with her mom, brother, and cousins, Z and Jazz. Besides her loved ones, Anila is most passionate about sustainable gardens and martial arts. I very much look forward to this conversation. Friends, you will find her full bio attached. Anila, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Are you ready for the questions that we sent you?
Sure, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. What's been your biggest challenge, I guess, in almost the last year?
Surprisingly, overwork. I'm just, every month seems to be getting much more like busier and busier and busier. And then with the second wave happening right before Christmas break, it's just been really, really overwhelming in terms of just, how much work there's been, working at the Center for Newcomers and with the province announcing their the Calgary COVID care teams and the Edmonton COVID care teams. So I'm chairing the Calgary team as part of our Calgary East Zone Collaborative. And so we've got 17 organizations that are working together along with the City of Calgary and SEMA and the Calgary Local Immigration Partnership, Alberta Health Services, the Premier's Office, Minister Rajan Sahani. So we've got all these people working together to be able to assist people that are in the hot zones in Calgary and Northeast Calgary. And so my only 2 days off over the holidays were December 25th and January 1st.
Whoa.
So so it seemed like typically these kind of, crisis situations and whatever else are a little bit of a marathon, but it felt like it was a marathon and then it went into a sprint right into the last year. So it's been very busy. So I think that kind of overwork feeling has been really the most difficult for me over the course of the last year.
No doubt. And do you see some relief coming or how, like, obviously you can't sustain that?
No, I think that that's the big piece, right? Is ensuring that the self-care is there, right? So one of the things that I did right at the beginning of the pandemic, knowing full well who I am and and my own needs, I was diagnosed with chronic depression when I was 20.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I reached out to, they were advertising that there's a Owl Pod, which is a bunch of family doctors that are doing, therapy sessions for you. And so I'd like to think I was really proactive with that and proactive talking to my doctor to ensure that I've got my medications up, and everything else. And then also, trying to hold myself to account in terms of actually trying to get some exercise and proper sleep and those kind of things. But the self-care has been extremely important. And in terms of the reprieve, well, that just depends on how COVID goes, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. Or the choices around COVID, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And what a small world. The Alpod friends are friends of ours.
Oh, wonderful. I love the doctor that I'm working with. Lovely shout out to Dr. Nargis Karamdad. She's been my rock through all of this. And every time she says to me, I think you're fine, Anila, you don't need to be meeting with me this often. And I just get this look on my face being like, can I
No,
please?
I need you.
Yeah. And she's like, you really don't. And I'm like, yeah, I do, kind of.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
she's really been my touchstone. So I've been really appreciative of that.
Oh, I'm glad. I look forward to, I'm wanting to help get them all across the province, have Alpods everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Mm.
it's so needed and it's so great because, it's just general kind of talk therapy and you can talk about anything and it's just nice to have somebody outside of my own circle that I can just be, talking to that is basically just ensuring that I'm being accountable for my own needs, right? Which I think is really important because, if your husband or your mom or whoever keeps asking you, did you eat today? You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's something weird about a stranger who's, like your doctor, that is just their entire job is to make sure that you're healthy. And so you feel this kind of accountability to them that like, I don't want to let her down. So yes, I ate today.
Yeah. I understand that. We all, it takes an army to help us all, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for
No, that's
sure.
awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And what about your 3 things that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Well, I think I've had a lot of time to think during the pandemic, which has been really good, even though being really busy and whatever else. And I think, one of the things that has really struck me quite a bit, and you see it in memes, and you see it in a lot of people much smarter than me talking about it in much bigger ways around, in crisis, it really becomes apparent what the inequities in our society really are. And I think that that's something that's really important for all of us to really reflect on and really see that in a crisis situation like the pandemic, we're really able to see where systemic barriers have had an undue impact on certain populations and certain people, more so than other populations and other people. So, and those include those standard things that we've all been working very hard for in terms of equality and equity for so many years, right? So we know that the division of labor has been much, much more difficult for women. We know that women have needed to sacrifice a lot more, and their mental health and their physical health and even their livelihoods are a lot more stake than men. We know that there are systemic racial barriers that, of course, have been brought to light much more, on a global perspective with Black Lives Matters and with the death of Mr. Floyd, but also, just in terms of access to information and the ability to be able to receive, for example, information in first language that is plain language. And even in English, for people like you and I, that might be, and I'm making an assumption about you, but first language speakers of English, like myself, anyways, there's an assumption that we're all going to be able to understand all of the medical jargon and all of the information that's coming out, right? But even for friends of mine that are academics and whatever else, they don't want to always be talking in academic speak, right? So plain language is so important in access to information for for everyone, right? And I think that that's the first thing that I really wanted to talk about, is that a crisis just really brings out where the inequalities are in a system, and in a sense can also be a place where we can start working on them, because if we can work on them in a crisis situation and be able to provide some dignity and some relief to people that aren't receiving that, or are on the the short end of the stick, so to speak, then hopefully we'll be able to, in times of prosperity, then everyone prospers better, right? And the community is much better for it, right? I worry a lot about moms, especially, right, with little ones at home that are trying, especially not only if they're single moms, but definitely single moms, but people that are trying to make ends meet and are trying to help their children through their schooling and doing all those things, and definitely don't have any type of reprieve from all of their responsibilities. And I think that as a society, we need to do a lot better in terms of being able to provide supports to everyone, so that in crisis situations, especially, we feel everybody's feeling a lot more supported, right? So and a lot of smart people, in Calgary that are working on all of these different kind of things. But I think it's something that the general public, if we speak more about and reduce stigmas around, some of these issues, that it makes it easier for people to come forward and say, yes, I am struggling and I need some assistance, right? And no shame about that at all, because of course, if you're a single mom with 4 kids all in school, and and you're the sole breadwinner, of course you're going to struggle during the pandemic. Those of us that don't have, any of those issues are struggling through the pandemic. So of course you're going to, right? And so I think that those are important things that we need to really discuss. So that's definitely my first thing. The second one is kind of more on the opposite side of that, is that there's always unintended positive consequences to any type of crisis, right? And so one of the things that I've noticed in my own life is that I don't need to attend every single one of those networking events, and I don't need to always be out until 9 or 10 o'clock at night on my work nights in attending these different things. And there's different ways to build connections while maintaining your own I guess boundaries of for your own self-care and being able to really focus on what's important. And I think that that's been a real blessing for me, especially to be able to spend more time at home, to be able to spend more time even just like on WhatsApp, connecting. My mom's 4 kilometers away from me, where she lives 4 kilometers away from me, but it's still nice to be able to just get on video chat with her and just, be chatting with her while I'm cooking or while I'm, doing something in the house or just, even watching TV or whatever, and just, asking her what she's watching and, and talking to her throughout the day, which is not a luxury that I enjoyed prior to this. And I think part of it was just I never realized that I could do that in that same way and have those kinds of relationships, right? But without the travel time incorporated into so many things, I really feel that, that even post pandemic, that, it's going to be important for all of us to really evaluate how much time we really do need to spend outside of the home or outside of doing the things that actually bring us joy and comfort, right? So that's the second one.
Love it.
Yeah, and I guess the third one is just a really simple ask that Calgarians are always really good at doing, right? Like if you have the opportunity to help, do it, right? Whether that's just encouragement. Like one of the things that I've noticed is even on like social media, like for buy and sell groups and things like that, there are so many mean people that are just, for no reason, just need to comment on somebody's post or whatever else. If you don't like their artwork that they're selling, move on,
That's right.
And so, even if it's just a word of encouragement to somebody who's being told that their art sucks or, whatever,
agreed.
like I've been finding that I've just been spending time saying, well, I think it's lovely, right? Like just leaving that comment or something like that, just because it's just, just showing a little bit of kindness. And I think that that's something that Calgarians are very good at in terms of volunteering, but maybe also, in the absence of being able to leave your house too much or whatever else, there's other types of volunteering that you can do, right? And just some kind words to strangers on the internet could go a long way.
What good advice.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And how about in your last piece with legacy, good news, opportunity on the horizon? What would you like to close with?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing that's been a real blessing and hopefully, part of my legacy when I look back on my life is, this collaborative work that we've been able to do for the hot zones in Calgary. We have 17 organizations that got together originally to do some, work, and then to be joined by all 3 levels of government in doing the work, and then many other organizations coming forward to also want to assist and to participate in many different ways, all working collaboratively together. I think the real lessons for me personally have been throughout this is that, if you can set competition aside because funding dollars or resources are limited, and really lead with an abundance mindset as opposed to, a very limited kind of a resource mindset, then it's been really amazing. The reason that I don't look, I guess, tattered and bruised and just really exhausted, even though I've been working so much, is that I feel like I'm not in this alone. That there's so many wonderful people that are working collaboratively, that, none of us are fighting over who's getting this or who's getting that. We're advocating for each other because we're advocating for the community. And I think that when you put the community first, you can build all kinds of amazing responses, not only to crisis, but to many of our society's different needs. And so, I highly recommend, finding people that are like-minded with you, that you can get along with, that can, just start solving, get on Zoom, grab a glass of wine or a tea or whatever it is, and start thinking about, like, if you could solve any of the needs in your own life, what would it look like and how would you do that? And that's basically how we started as these organizations and as this group, and we've gotten to know each other, we've gotten to trust each other. And I think that hopefully that's going to be the legacy, is that, truly collaborating, truly putting community first and people first helps everybody in the long run.
I agree. And I agree as a fellow Rotarian. I also see a lot of collaboration. So there's been a lot even in food security, and there's certainly a lot more conversations like that. So unfortunately, through this lockdown, we've been forced to do that, but I think that is a really good outcome. I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Anila. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and your expertise.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Everyone, that was Anila Lee Yuen. I am so glad that you could join us today. I loved her words of wisdom. I'm sure you did too. Thanks for joining us on Cats Track. We'll see you next time.